Thank you, Fred, the wonderful chanter, and the bell master, and all of you who are present for this occasion, providing this occasion. I'd like to lead a short period of meditation as a foundation, so all of you get a little taste of the foundation of silent illumination practice. It may be a little different than what you're used to, but I think if you take heart to this practice, you will find that it's quite useful to whatever method that you use. So if you will, sit comfortably, hands on the lap. Just take a moment to bring your awareness back to the body. So withdraw your senses back. The body on the cushion, sitting. The presence and sense of weight. So in our tradition, before we sit, we always prime the body, heart, and mind. And the way to do that, we begin with progressive relaxation. And the benefit of this is to relax the body, to be in tune with the body, and grounded for deeper practice. So bring your awareness to the crown of your head through tactile sensations. Allow that sensation to trickle down the forehead, relaxing the skin, flesh, muscles. And we come to the first area that's most difficult to relax. The space between the eyebrows and the eyes. So usually we hold a lot of tension here. So to relax this area, raise your eyebrows up and let them drop. Do this a few times. Familiarize yourself with relaxing the skin and the muscles. How it feels to relax this area between the eyebrows. Allow that sense of release to extend now to your eyelids. Relaxing the skin. Now the eyeballs. Don't use your eyes to see anything. Treat them like muscles. See if you can feel their contour, the sense of weight even. Resting in the eye socket. So if you see black, you see darkness, light, that means you're using your eyes. As long as you use your eyes, there's some tension there. So relax them like muscles. How does that feel? Extend that feeling to the planes of your cheeks. All the way down to your jaw. Following the jawline, all the way to the chin. Tucking your chin. Now your mouth. You can wet your lips at this time. Get a good feel of your lips and gentle smiles at the corners of your mouth. How does that feel? If we're sensitive to it, just by the sheer muscle memory of gentle smile, there's already a subtle shift in the undercurrent tone of how we feel in this moment. Pleasant, content. So take a moment to experience this. Now bring your awareness back to the crown. This time, relax the scalp. From the front, feeling the skin, the pores, all the way to the back, section by section. Relaxing. Opening all the pores with the intention of relaxing even each follicle of hair. This whole area relaxed and cleared. From the base of the cranium, relax down the neck, feeling the skin, the muscles. At the same time, we can rotate the neck to bring a level of clarity. In a circular motion, rotate one direction and change direction, feeling the neck muscles stretch. Now to the shoulders. The second most difficult part to relax. So we take a inhalation and then raise our shoulders up. In other words, tense up the shoulders. Hold, exhale, let them drop. And then do this a few times. Feel the sense of release. Familiarize it. Wiggle your shoulders a bit if you want. A relaxed shoulder. Allow the relaxation to now flow down the two arms. The upper arms covering the biceps and triceps. So very concretely, relaxing the skin, feel muscles, tendons relaxing. Wiggle your elbows a bit, make sure it's relaxed. And then the forearms, skin, muscles, tendons, relax. Relaxing the wrists, feel the warmth of the palms and fingers. Now let's come to the chest. See if you can feel the subtle rise and fall of the chest naturally, following the rhythm of your breath. Now we have a good sense of the breath, and we can use it. With the next exhalation, as you exhale, bring the sense of bodily weight down. Let it sink. So breathing into the relaxation, right down to the abdomen. And see if you can feel the rise and fall of the abdomen following the rhythm of your breath. If you have difficulty feeling that area, you can even put your palms over your abdomen. A lot of nerve endings and capillaries in the palms, so we can easily feel the rise and fall of the abdomen following the rhythm of the breath. And then place your palm back on your lap. Now, bring your awareness to the upper back. First, making sure the back of the shoulders are relaxed, the back of the neck. Feeling the skin, muscles, and tendons. You can move your shoulders a bit if you want. And you will see that this area too. You can feel the subtle rise and fall of the muscles following the rhythm of your breath. You can use the exhalations. As you exhale, trickle down the sensations down to the mid-back. Relaxing. Exhale again, down to the lower back, sweeping through the lumbar area, right down to the buttocks. Now, in order just to make sure we're not subtly leaning to one side or another, we sway our body from left to right, front and back. Find that center point of gravity. The back is upright, yet completely and effortlessly relaxed. Find that access point. And then relaxing to it. And placing our hands now in the meditation posture in our tradition. Left palm on top of right, thumbs touching, hands resting in the lap. It can be supported by a towel or directly on the body. Now take a moment to feel the thumbs. With the next exhalation, relax down. Allow the weight to sink down right into earth. Grounded. Upper body light as a feather. Continuing to relax the hips, thighs, and knees. Calves, ankles, and feet. Right into earth. The body still, motionless, completely relaxed and grounded. At this time, you will find that the breath is completely harmonized, subtle. Now let's take care of the heart. In this moment, this feeling of being at ease, without grasping anything or rejecting anything, self at ease. There's a pleasant and contentment. Now, take a moment to experience this contentment. embodied experiencing content. Needing nothing from the outside. Now, the last ingredient, sharpen the mind. Clearly focus on your method, whether that be working with a breath or something else. In our tradition, we begin with the breath. Breath at the nostrils. The cool or the warmth, smooth, silky, or the coarse, long or short, light, a little bit more turbulent. All the sensations of the breath. Embodied, experiencing them. With great, great interest. Now, nothing else matters. With great determination, interest. The roof can collapse. It doesn't matter. The only thing is this embodied experiencing of your method. The method, the experiencing, and the present become one. The present is the breath. The breath is the embodied experiencing. This is the present. Freshness. Instant by instant. And we sit for a few minutes like this. If there's sensations at the nostrils, vanish, subside, bring it down to the abdomen. The sensations there. If the sensations there become so subtle, imperceptible, then simply segue into the embodied experiencing of the simplicity of sitting, concrete, rooted. The presence of the sitting. There's a sense of weight, grounded, rooted to earth. Body sitting, mind sitting. The sitting, the present, the embodied experiencing, instant by instant. are one. Moment to moment. New beginning. Freshness. Yet completely grounded, rooted to earth. Okay, please join your palms. And then hands back on the lap. I'm going to show you how to do self-massage in our tradition. So rotate the body in a circular motion gently. Be aware of the movements and sensations. Still grounded. Both directions. And now, place your palm together. You wake up the body by rubbing the palms together. The meaty part of the palm, rub it. And place that warmth right over your eyes. Allow the warmth to come in. You can do this several times. Still meditating. Movements, sensations. Now the whole face. The warmth of the palm over the whole face. Now you can use your knuckles or your fingers. Massage the eye socket. And then the forehead. And then use your fingers to walk up from the ear up to the crown. Massaging. And then walk back down. Make sure you cover the whole scalp. Experience how that feels. Mind very clear. Down the neck. Rotate the neck. And then from here on out, muscle squeeze, joints rub. So one shoulder at a time. Muscle squeeze, joints rub. When you get to the fingers, you can just pull on the fingers, massage them as well. With the chest, massage, rotate both directions. The abdomen only one direction. If your hands are on the top, go to your left, down, and then come back up on the right. This has to do with the internal placement of the organs. So we flow along with the placement of the organs instead of going against it. The rib cage. In the back, massage. Grab and squeeze. And then alongside of the two spines, use your knuckles to kind of rotate and massage down. We take great care of the body. In tune with the body. And then lower back where the kidneys are, rub to create heat. And then massage the legs. Muscle squeeze, joints rub. Massage. So I'm going to skip that part, but feel free to do that. You extend your legs. Okay, thank you. Thank you all. It's a great honor to be here and to be practicing with all of you. You're very fortunate to have Fred as your teacher, a very experienced practitioner. So, and I'm finding out more and more things about Fred as we correspond. He was involved in publishing my great-grandmaster in our lineage, first book in English, Master Xu Yun, Empty Cloud. So it's a delight to find these little bits and pieces of information. So thank you. Definitely I will visit you all. Hopefully one day you can practice in person. How was that sitting? Was it okay? Yeah. So in our tradition, when we sit, we always prime the body and prime the mind, which means, priming the mind means becoming more in tune with how we are approaching the method. So we don't just jump right in. Right? These undercurrent feeling tones, most people are not aware. It's always present. Right? Whether we are awake or asleep, there's some kind of mental factor that's present, shaping our experience. So what I mean by these undercurrent feeling tone, when we relax the body, diffuse the stress mechanism, settle the nerves, then we can access how we actually feel in the moment. And I mentioned about contentment. Right? Contentment is just a very concrete way of saying, don't grasp and don't reject. No need to seek anything. Don't try to get rid of anything or fix anything. Just being at ease, content. So practicing in this way, not trying to get anywhere, not trying to accomplish some spiritual, whatever imagined goal, is being content and being in love with the method, whatever that may be. At that moment, the body, the breath, mind, primed with great interest. Then you can not get so involved with the body. But naturally, you'll be grounded, rooted to earth. So in an embodied way. The way we use the breath, also in an embodied way. Right? It's not completely up here. And the reason I teach that is most people are so in the head. So when they hear the teachings, they hear the Dharma, and they practice meditation, so the automatic response is they make it into a thing in their head. And they think it's a kind of cerebral exercise or practice. And they ignore the body, right? But the body is an indicator of a lot of things, how we feel and how we experience things. So in our tradition, we place great emphasis in establishing a good foundation. So the body, mind, heart, one. And the way we experience the breath is the same. The method, meditation on the breath, or counting the breath, or whatever. The method, the body, the experiencing, and the present moment, these three together, instant by instant. Practicing this way as a foundation. So once a person is skilled in doing this and be able to translate into daily life, then that practitioner moves on to the subject of this short talk. Hopefully it will entertain a lot of questions. So just briefly, the person segue into silent illumination practice. Right? Or maybe this is a subject of another talk, or koan practice, right? Or in our tradition, wato practice. So we have three main methods. Supporting method would be loving kindness, which we also teach. So there's a natural, fluid progression, if you will. When the mind is very busy, if you do the priming, your mind would be pretty settled, right? But certain days people are a lot of thoughts and daily concerns, unfinished projects, so their mind may be turning. So the method will be a little complex. So the method, the way they approach the breath, all the different sensations here, the nostrils, or the counting. Sometimes when the mind is racing, we teach counting backwards. Right? So the method matches the state of their mind. Now, if the mind is racing, you give it a very simple method. It's not going to work. The mind wants more things to grab. Does that make sense? Yeah. So the method becomes complex. So the natural progression I'm talking about is, as the mind settles and concentrates, the method becomes more refined, simple. So the more complicated method, easier to do, but the level of concentration reached, shallow. The more simple the method, maybe harder to do in the beginning. If you get the hang of it, the more deeper one's able to go. So silent illumination, start with the breath here, all these sensations, you can count. As the sensations subside, and they will, drop down to the simplicity of rise and fall of the breath at the abdomen, just below the navel here, grounded and rooted to earth. As the movement here subside, then naturally open up to, you could say, the first stage of silent illumination, okay, which is, the Japanese call it shikantaza, just sitting. Right? Literally, it means just mind sitting, which has the connotation of like mind your own business. So, 直观, shikan, right? Mind your own business. What business is that? Sitting. Right? Strike up sitting. But in our tradition, in the way I teach it, I simply call it embodied, grounded, experiencing of sitting. It's kind of more concrete, I feel. And it has all the ingredients necessary. So in the simplicity of the act of sitting, the body is sitting, the mind is sitting. And the sitting itself is the present moment. It's the embodied experiencing. So it's not imagining yourself kind of standing outside, imagining yourself looking at yourself sitting, or is it thinking about sitting? It's completely embodied in this act of sitting. Now that's a simple method. So that means the mind has to be primed, concentrated. Then there are many signposts in that process, leading to silent illumination. Silent illumination, traditionally, is really not a method. It's a poetic expression, metaphor for awakening. Not some lofty state, but in this moment, our true nature, which is already free, which is awakening. All of you. Silent refers to selfless being, selflessness, right? Which is our true nature. Illumination refers to the function, the response, or responsiveness in the midst of activity. So you can call this essence and function. So it's just a description of who we truly are. Now, a lot of people misunderstand what selflessness means, or silent part, or emptiness. You don't have to worry. Even the Chinese, in the original language, and the Sanskrit, all the Buddhist languages, there's confusion. So there's nothing wrong with the translation here. Okay, it's not lost in translation. So it's just it's a radical idea. It's a radical truth that the Buddha discovered. So the way I talk about emptiness or selflessness, it's just from two angles. What it really means is relationships and new beginnings, fresh each moment. Relationships come from the kind of spatially, so everything come together, makes up who we are. In this moment, right now, we bring to it this moment, and this moment bears witness to all the things that we have. Everything and everyone that we have ever known is here in this moment. We are everyone else in our lives and all that we have experienced. Dependently emerging, right? And arising. So it's about relationships. It doesn't mean vacuity or you lose your personality, you have no thoughts anymore. Right? It doesn't mean that. It means interdependence or just relationships. It's from a spatial perspective. From a temporal perspective, it's the Buddhist technical word is anicca, which is impermanence. But this word brings a lot of baggage of kind of negativity, pessimism. So I just call it new beginnings. Each moment is fresh. Even in the midst of our wandering thoughts and deluded thinking, the freshness is there. When you meditate, you can sense this more prominently. The freshness of how wandering thoughts arise and how they vanish, coming and going. That freshness. Right? So that is the true nature of our thinking, of our thoughts and feelings. That is the true nature of who we are. So relationships, connections, and new beginnings. Now you can say relationship, it's kind of like the silence part. Right? New beginnings, the freshness is the function of that. Empty of reified, solidified notion of me, I, mine. Right? Actually, it's just flow. New beginnings. So it's the union of emptiness and impermanence at the working end of practice. Right? When we sit, when we relate to others, this principle must be understood very clearly and must be actualized. Right? And the way I teach is to always relax and ground oneself in all activities. Right? And then relate, open our heart, vulnerable, relate to all things, learn to recognize freshness, not preconceived notions that we project onto other people or events, but new beginnings, new beginnings. Difficulties come, we get knocked down, new beginning. Right? Someone praises us, we get all worked up, we let that go, new beginning. We don't keep it up. Right? So whatever our tendency, our habit to do, recognize the freshness and how all things in themselves let go, liberate themselves. Liberating self is not nothingness. Why? Because there's connections, there's relationships. Right? So that's a kind of, at the working end of practice, the way to embody very concretely the principle of Buddha Dharma. Right? Dependent origination and impermanence. Does that make sense? Right? So it's totally non-conceptual. You're just experiencing it. Right? So then what happens is the correct views now are no longer here conceptually. The correct views become embodied. The way we see things, the way we experience things, the way we love, the way we relate. Okay? And the way we engage in formal sitting practice. Once a person is kind of grounded in this silent illumination principle, through which they adapt this principle to all kinds of methods, working with the breath, loving kindness, different contemplations, relax, ground, engage. Right? Relationships, new beginnings. Once a person practices this way, it is possible for the person to engage in another related, unique Chan method, which is koan. The Japanese pronunciation, koan. In each, or the English would be public case. Cases like court cases, cases of awakening of the past teachers. People practice that, contemplate the story, and within each story there are these punchlines. These punchlines or critical turning points or critical phrase. It's called hua tou. Hua is the phrase. Tou means the source. So, the wellspring and source of all words and language and feelings and discursive things and ruminations. Right? So, in the context of the koan, the punchline of the koan, right? That juncture of transformation when the person experiences awakening, right? That goes beyond rational thinking. Right? So a person would use that method. That's a topic for another occasion, but that method is also non-conceptual. Right? Contrary to what people may think about it, thinking about koan, how can that be? So how? Grounded. The person's, because they've been practicing this way, in our tradition at least, completely grounded. And the purpose of which is to generate a sense of wonderment, sense of not knowing. Like some of the famous huatou, gongans, or the sound of one hand clapping. Right? What is wu? Or who is, or what is dragging this corpse around in everyday life? Who's animating this? What is it? An American one would be like, who am I? But all the thousands of koans, huatus, can be reduced to what is it? Or what remains? It's two sides of the same coin. So all the systems of koan curriculum, all the different huatus and stories and can be reduced to coming to from these two angles. The Japanese tradition, Zen tradition, have systematized it in loosely construed curriculum. It's not like a real curriculum, but there's a lot of flexibility in that. In the Chan tradition, there's no curriculum, very organic. Sometimes huatou and gong'an can emerge between the conversation between teacher and student, or events in one's life. So you need a teacher's guidance to work on that method, which is more explosive and focused. Whereas the silent illumination is more open, grounded. So the two are complementary to one another. Complementary. And a person needs to gain a good footing in both, to be well-rounded in practice. And these two are intimately connected to daily life. They're not separate from, the complexity of the challenges of life. And that's the uniqueness of Chan. The traditional lingo phrase is carrying water, chopping wood, are part of Chan. Nowadays, I'm guessing many of you don't chop wood or carry water, right? But you do internet, like you sign on to Zoom, and you do all kinds of stuff, right? So in the midst of life, that is the juice. The juice of life is the resources to engage in the practice of relaxing, grounding, engage, so that we expose all our rumination, discursive thinking, wandering thoughts, vexations, right? Mental affliction, expose them. Our self-referentiality, these become the ingredients. So we expose, we embrace. Right? Don't try to reject, don't try to follow them either, right? These kind of negative habits. Right? Why? Content, with at ease. That's the grounding part. Right? We embrace them. Embrace them does not mean following them. Does not mean rejecting them, suppressing them either. Just work with them. Work with them. So they become the ingredients of practice. Then we can let go of them. So expose, embrace, transform, or work with them, let go. Of course, this is not a linear process. The more we embrace, the more we discover other kind of stuff that's within us. Right? The more we discover, the more we're able to let go. Not a cerebral process, completely grounded, right? Embodied. Sometimes, especially in silent illumination, the things that come up, don't run away, completely face it. Allow these things to flow through you. If you don't solidify, reify them into some kind of narrative conclusions that you draw, I'm no good, I'm not worthy, or I'm not good enough, or this and that, or I'm the greatest thing, that ever happened. Right? Whatever thing that come up, allow it to flow through you. Then that kind of resiliency, just so much power and presence to just being vulnerable and open, and grounded. Then we see our full potential of our Buddha nature, right? Able to face everything. Why? Because we're empty. We don't have any reified notion. If we solidify the things that come up into things, notions, and ideas, then we'll break. And we'll break. All the things that come up will break you. But if you're completely open to it, right, you will see something inexhaustible within each and every one of you. And that is your freedom. How free you are. How all things in their true nature liberate themselves. So I'll stop here. We got a good 30 minutes, maybe, close to 30 minutes. So I would love to, for Fred to share with me your teachings, things that resonate, things that stood out, or questions you have, and all of you too. Thank you. I know Fred has a lot of decades of practice under his belt in many traditions. So,
So
please.
Yeah. So, there's nothing to be said. I deeply appreciate, not only the coherency and the clarity of where you transmit the pith of Chan, but even more than that is the energy, the enthusiasm, the clarity. That is to me the most important. So I have nothing to add. Everything has been said long before I even opened my mouth. So to be honest, Guo Gu, since I'm always up here, the one who's talking, I am so happy just being the listener and student. So I won't pollute this experience. Okay, so I turn it back to you.
Thank you. Thank you. And so, uh, you know, when I have guest speakers here, I feel the same way. Every time I yap away, it's so lovely to have someone else talking. So, if all of you have something to share, please feel free to speak up. Or I don't know the system that you have. Maybe you've already shared on the in the chat your questions.
Yeah, so Guo Gu, the methodology we use when we're on Zoom, not like in the hall, but we're on Zoom with so many, is that people please chat it in. For those who don't know, at the bottom of your screen, there's a chat function, and Maggie is on AV here, and she will see your chats, and then she will relay their questions to you.
Okay.
Thank you very much for your teachings. I have a question here. Could you please say more about how a student would work with a koan?
So different Chan Zen teachers work with students differently, but typically, because the koan, huatou, can potentially stir up a lot of things within us. So the student must have a close relationship with the teacher. Now, silent illumination, relaxing, grounding, opening, right? And merging the embodied experiencing, the present moment, and the actual sitting, right? To begin with. So it's a relaxing or kind of settling practice, right? But huatou, gong'an, touches on something that is very deep within us. The existential dilemma. So, what is it? What is this? This. So, a lot of habit patterns, things can come up. So, working closely with the teacher, number one. Okay? And then by working with the teacher will see your habits, the way you practice, your spiritual aptitude, so to say. By working with you earlier, like maybe on the breath, right? The breath method, how a person kind of navigates the method, the things that come up, psychophysiological reactions that come up, the teacher observes and come to know you, and you come to know yourself. So the huatou that's assigned or decided to between the teacher and student that you start with, that's something very unique within Chan. It's not really fixed. Not really fixed. In the Japanese Zen, there's some criteria. So a person usually start with, what is mu or what is wu? Does the dog have Buddha nature? Master Zhao Zhou says wu or no. This no is not a yes and no, that no. Right? So what is it? What is this no? So one kind of works with this. Right? And in meditation, relaxed and grounded. It's almost as if, the way I would teach, if a person were to work on this, it's as if the no, or the wu, wells up from the earth. Right? So it's not here. Right? Not here. And it's definitely not asking like, what is wu? Well, it could be this, could be that. That would be kind of entertaining like, all the trails and the tracks of wandering thoughts. Really. The point of this unanswerable, impassable question is to generate the sense of not knowing, the sense of wonderment, we call it in the Chan tradition, Zen tradition, the doubt sensation, not suspicion, but the sense of this flavor of not knowing. Right? And that is the non-conceptual part. Right? So, it's like, for example, maybe your name is Maggie, right? So, in the next moment, I'll call your name Maggie, right? So it's like, you listen now. You see how the mind is, it's open, non-conceptual, yet it's wakeful, not knowing, it's in the waiting. Do you get that flavor? Raise your hand if you kind of got a little sense of that, right? So it's, you're meditating, but you're not really thinking about the dog as Buddha nature. No, I don't know, maybe I'm the dog. Do I have Buddha nature? A person may begin like that, but like I said, when the mind is scattered, well, you let the student kind of do all kinds of stuff with the method. The method must match the state of the mind. If you tell them to begin with something simple, they can't do it. Right? So you just let them think about it until all thinking exhausts, until we arrive at a point in which we have no idea what is Wu. What is it? What is it? Right? So one rests in this wakeful, not knowing, but pointed question. And all of the our existential question is the source of all questions in life, really. Right? Collapses into the single not knowing. No body, no mind, just wonderment. And this is quite an intensive practice. So usually it's engaged in the context under the protection and support of the teacher and the Sangha in the retreat. Until the person is skilled enough, then the teacher will let them engage that in daily life. Then the kind of flavor of wonderment begin to adapt and morph into the activity of daily life. Right? Not constantly asking the question anymore, the phrase, just the flavor, kind of tapping into the fundamental reason why a person would engage in Chan practice. The same reason why Shakyamuni Buddha embarked, leaving everything behind, embarked on the practice. It's the same. Right? What is it? Now his question was framed with suffering. What's the cause of suffering? Old age, death. What is it? And that's basically a huatou, basically a koan, right? Unanswerable, insurpassable. Now there are many koans. The one that relates to us, that we work with, practice in the context, working with the teacher. Now, what about silent illumination? In our tradition, silent illumination, even though it does not have that pointed phrasing, that question, the huatou, koan, but the fundamental question, the existential question of what is it, it's still driving the Chan practitioner who practices silent illumination. It's just that they're not framing it. So that, what I said earlier, that embodied experiencing and the present moment and the reality of this moment sitting. The sense of freshness, new beginning, right? Behind that is this wonderment. Now, this wonderment is not narrowly focused on a question, but the wonderment is still there. Without that, it's not Chan practice. Right? Not even Buddhist practice, really. Right? Now, Buddhism in America is young, so people come to Buddhism with all kinds of things. You know, they just want stress reduction or live a happier life. Which is good. It's good. But it's like settling, coming to Buddhism, instead of sitting in the riches, the wealth of a treasure trove, you just pick up a lint. It's like, oh, this is what I want. This is what I just want. Meanwhile, it's like gold, silver, coins, jewels, and no, that's not what I want. So the potential of Buddha Dharma to completely liberate ourselves and bring forth compassion, wisdom. Nope. I just want this lint. That's what I come for. It's like, it's good. Okay, just take the lint. If you want that, fine. But for Buddhist practitioner, that freedom that's within, that silent illumination and koan kind of taps into, that's where the treasure is. That's where the treasure is. Okay, so I know Fred has developed this kind of threefold practice, for all of you in Florida, right? Yes, I hope you stress reduction, great, but really the treasure that Fred has up his sleeve, don't settle for some lint that he's throwing at you, okay? So search for the gem within. All right, does that answer your question? Next question.
Actually, Maggie is asking other people's questions to you. She's on the AV. So she has a bunch of questions that people are chatting in. So she's going to share them with you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you. There's two questions, very similar, about relationship. The first being, could you say more about your interpretation of silent, especially the connection between emptiness and relationship?
Okay. People typically come to Buddhism when they read about no self, emptiness. Immediately we bring to it, our preconceived ideas, maybe see it as something negative. And it's not a problem with English. In all the Buddhist languages, people do this because basically it's putting things in the negative form. So Buddhism in India, in that historical context, the way they taught, especially in early Buddhism, and even early Mahayana Buddhism, tend to present things apophatically. I'm using a kind of Christian theological term, like God is not this, God is not that. So approach things in negation, through negation. So, hence impermanence, no self, emptiness, not this, not that. Right? So just so that people don't start to reify, solidify things as yet another thing to attach to. Right? So that's a typical context. Later form of Mahayana, and certainly in East Asia form, including Vietnam, parts of Vietnam, tend to approach Buddhism, tend to gravitate to aspects of Buddhist teaching that frames it in a cataphatic way instead of apophatic, right? In a positive way. You know, like Buddha nature and the Buddha within, Tathagata Garbha. You know, true emptiness and yet wonderful existence, right? So they kind of frame it in this positive light. So my phrasing of relationship connection is basically just a positive approach to emptiness, right? Kind of bypassing this kind of negative assumptions, because really it's not negative at all, nor is it just positive. Emptiness traditionally is defined as interdependence. Interdependence. All things come together because of different causes and conditions. So, Guo Gu comes from non-Guo Gu. All that Guo Gu is come from the benefit of others. In fact, the reason I teach is to pay gratitude to my teacher and to all beings. It's not that I'm giving them something. It's a kind of natural repayment, the debt, the nourishment that I have received. You can pay it forward, nourishing others. So everything that Guo Gu is comes from non-Guo Gu. Everything that you are comes from non-you. And what is that really? Interdependence, that interconnectedness. Relationships, right? Relationships. So silence. Now I've talked about emptiness, connection, relationships. What about silence? Silence is a very Chinese, silent illumination. This is very Chinese literary, poetic expression. Right? Why? Because the founder of silent illumination, the first person who really articulated this so clearly, Master Hongzhi, this guy was a genius. By age 4, 5, he already memorized the Chinese classics that the adults through civil service examination test on. So this guy was a genius. So since very young, he was exposed, reared in the literature, right? Poetry, well educated. So he was honed to be an educated literati, or placement in the government, the central state. Except he becomes a monk. Right? Instead, gives that up, become a monk. So we get silent illumination, all the wonderful writings. And that's what happens when a very smart person, when a very literate person, very educated person becomes enlightened. Right? They start writing, poetically and so on. Not like other Chan masters who just kind of screams and yell. So different Chan masters have different styles. So what is silent illumination, the silent part? It's just simply Hongzhi's way to poetically express emptiness. Right? So he didn't stop at silence. Right? Silent illumination. And in fact, he didn't really use silent illumination, that couplet of words, too many times in his writing. He has a whole cluster. This is a very literary guy. So this guy's got a whole bag of expression, sometimes quiescent luminosity. sometimes through poetic imagery of the lucid lake that reflect the moon, or multiple streams, each including droplets of water reflecting the moon. Or sometimes he have other kind of imagery that he uses, such as so still in one's meditation, moss start to grow on one's tongue, right? Silent part. So sitting meditation, like birds start to kind of set nests and stuff. And yet, the mind is completely radiant, luminous, translucent, like a clear lake down to the bottom. So he has all kinds of imagery. That's just Hongzhi. So his wording of silence is really just the essence of who we are, which is empty. Yet, he does not stop there. This emptiness has wondrous function, responsiveness, which is illumination. What he describes, the compassion, which is the motivation of practice, to save all beings, to dedicate oneself for the benefit of others. And also the fruit of practice, the wondrous activity of a practitioner. And that's the illumination part. So I wouldn't get kind of too caught up with the wording of silent illumination. Nor would I get too caught up with no self, emptiness, shunyata. These are just words. You can understand the meaning conceptually. Most important part is to embody and experience. Why is it that this is our true nature? How is this so? Okay. So emptiness is not vacuity. Everything's there. Just our reification, solidification of discrete things into discrete things. That which flows into discrete things. That tendency is not there. Okay. Maybe next question.
Thank you very much. A question here on what cultural issues do you see that Americans commonly deal with in becoming serious practitioners of Buddhism?
That's a big question. And Americans are still discovering it. So the story is not done yet. So we bring to it so much. But I do want to say that, these cultural issues, baggage, it's part of Buddha Dharma. Right? So just like when Buddhism moved to South Asia, moved to China, moved to Korea, Japan, Vietnam, moved to Tibet, now it comes to America. It needs to take on all of these cultural aspects and expressions in order to take root. For example, Chan Zen, Buddhism, is really the first indigenous form of Chinese Buddhism. Prior to that, it still kind of had this Indic flavor, to the theories, the way they understood, and the way it's practiced. But when it became Chan Buddhism, emerged as a kind of indigenous form, drawing from the riches of indigenous religious traditions. What would that be? Taoism, And the form that it took, Chan monasticism and practices, decorum. What is that? Confucianism. So it's part of it. As long as these cultural trappings is very natural, as long as the essence, which is in most simple way, freedom, liberation, is not lost. The gem that I'm talking about, the jewels in this spacious room that we all live in, is not lost, then by all means. Yeah. So in America, what do Westerners do when they discover kind of Buddhism becoming mainstream? What do? They put wires on monks' head, on practitioners' head, try to measure their neural synaptic firings and which part of the region of the brain. Why? Because we live in a particular era, this paradigm, science, and interest in self-cultivation, health, well-being. So naturally it'll take on these expressions. And different Westerners kind of gravitate to Buddhism differently. Right? For example, recently I've been working with black Dharma teachers, amplifying, supporting their presence and healing. And this is part of the Dharma Relief second initiative. So because of their culture, upbringing, and experiences, both on an individual level and also historically, they come to Buddhism differently. Right? The element of ancestor is very important to them. The aspects of movements and singing and so on are central to them. And unlike, for example, white spaces, practitioner Dharma spaces, which privileges silence, particular way of acting, may not be suitable for them. At least, white Dharma centers should be aware of people of color and respect their cultural expressions, and provide a safe space for them, so they feel not like a black sheep, in the midst of people of different race. So they feel welcomed, right? So they have a particular way. Recently, I was supporting a black Dharma teacher, and part of her teaching, she was singing. She wrote the lyrics to important central teachings of Buddha Dharma in a gospel music form, right? And she had a beautiful voice, right? So she sang it. It was a recording, kind of the conclusion of her talk with that gospel song, but the lyrics are Buddha Dharma, So when I saw that, I was like, that's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. So what is that? Culture. That's part of them. It's part of their history. Right? So just like the Chinese, just like the Tibetans, right? The Chinese, for example, when my teacher helped him to organize a dialogue between His Holiness the Dalai Lama and my teacher to have a conversation. It's called the Wisdom Teachings, 1998, in New York City. And Chinese Buddhism, influenced by Confucianism, the decorum, how they carried themselves, very Confucius. You don't see some crossing their legs when they sit. You don't see that. The legs are down. Right? You go to South Asia, you see monks crossing their legs and sitting a particular way. And Tibetans, they have a tendency, I'm sure some of you When they chant, they go like this. And then, so, and they, sometimes they talk like that. And my teacher was like, what? Why are they shaking? Why are they talking? Why can't they sit still? So it's a different culture. You see, so they bring to it their own practices, what's norm and stuff. Right? So you don't use one culture to judge another one. That would not be good. Right? So we understand that. Now, do we start, Chan, did my teacher kind of start dialogue with Dalai Lama when my teacher is talking and Dalai Lama is listening, and when he's talking, my teacher's listening. You don't see my teacher going like this. like this, right? Or you don't see, the Dalai Lama changes the way he carries himself. So all these culture is totally embodied, completely embodied. Right? It helps us to embody certain teachings, help us navigate to daily life. So the West, getting back to your question, I don't really see it as a problem. Putting wires in people's brains, see the brain waves. It's just a process. But the Dharma has a single function. To give an analogy, it's like soap. What's the function of soap? Clean, right? So in India, soap created, it's brought to China and sold to Japan, and now is marketed to the West. All kinds of soap. There's ivory soap, there's Dove, there's all kind of fragrance added. It doesn't matter what fragrance, what color, what shape. And now it's even in liquid form, liquid soap. It doesn't really matter. It has the same function. See, so the dynamic expressions, the wonderful poetic and cultural forms should be welcomed, respected, embraced, celebrated. As long as we don't lose the function of the soap. So. Okay, next.
Thank you very much. Question about loving kindness practice. Would you say a bit about the practice of loving kindness in your tradition?
We usually compartmentalize people, whether explicitly, implicitly, conscious or not, categorize them into people we like, people we don't like, people that we don't care, and the whole range of our relationships. And this comes out through the way we carry ourselves in their presence and the way we think about them through our own filters. So the purpose of loving kindness is to, of course, begin with a good foundation, relax, grounded, and come in tune with oneself. Physically, emotionally, spiritually. To develop a new way to relate to oneself. Again, it's about relationships. It's about connection. It's about new beginnings. So develop a new relationship with oneself by using loving kindness practice to oneself. And people made practices for months, for years, or just as a secondary method that that people use in our tradition. And then they start to move on to deal with the real issue of compartmentalizing people. So they go stage by stage. Right? First, they meditate on themselves, right? Being more in tune with oneself. And then people that they like, the benefactors. And then family members. Right? Why? Because family members are a little more complicated. Right? A little more complicated. We love and hate them. And there's so much history there. So start with something easy. Benefactor. Very easy to generate gratitude, thankfulness to people in our lives. And then family. And then neutral person. And then difficult person. So that we begin to diminish, and you can say crumble the wall between these categorizations that we tend to impute on our experiences and project on people, so that we can develop with equanimity, loving kindness to everyone. So it's a process of relaxing, grounding, loving ourselves, and also begin the process of exposing the way we relate to people, right? Embracing, and then working with, and then letting go. So the last stage is to really meditate on not only equanimity, but relationship and freshness of each moment. So the boundaries no longer exist. In that sense, how each, and through that, each category that we impute on others, project on others, actually can change. Right? A friend can become a foe can become a friend, or can be a neutral person, can be a distant. Someone familiar can become a stranger. So start to understand the emptiness and the non-substantiality of the way we construct the world around us and the people in our lives. So that's a general introduction to loving kindness, the way I teach it.
Yeah, so Guo Gu, well, we've been working you hard this morning. So why don't we, that's a wonderful place to end. So let me again express on behalf of our community and people who are online this morning with us who are not members, how fortunate we are to hear such a, erudite, and, and humorous and intelligent, propagator of the true Dharma. It's really been quite wonderful, and I hope this is the beginning of a longer-term relationship between our two communities. As Guo Gu knows, we live here in Florida. Florida sort of in a way is a land of the barbarians. The sentient beings in Florida are highly unruly. They love fun and pleasure, so I'm happy to know that there is another Dharma teacher doing our best to bring the Buddha Dharma to Florida. So I deeply bow to you. I know Maggie told me there were still many more questions. So Guo Gu's new book, Silent Illumination, A Chan Buddhist Path to Natural Awakening, really, I mean, he gives much, it develops it more, basically the sharing that he did with us this morning. So I encourage all of us who are interested in his Dharma, in the Chan tradition, to take a look at Silent Illumination. It's really quite a wonderful text.